You're a young man in need of adventure, bored of the drudgery of everyday life in your small town. You need a change, but you don't have the cash to put that change into effect. You know what you have to do, and that's take a huge risk. You sell everything you own, your car, your electronic goods, your beloved bicycle, even your clothes. You then empty your bank accounts and buy a ticket to the gambling mecca of Las Vegas. In your pocket is the cash equivalent to everything you own. $135,300. You head to the roulette wheel and stack your cash on red. The wheel turns, the ball is put into action, and for a few seconds you consider the future, your hands trembling, your heart skipping beats. The ball stops with a clunk. It's red, and what we've just told you is a true story. The English Risk Taker. That story is the tale of a man called Ashley Revell, a man from Maidstone, England, who sold all his possessions when he was 32 to make that bet in the US. It said he also raised cash from auctions and sales, so he wasn't exactly rolling in dough when he made that life-changing bet in 2004. In fact, when a UK online gambling company heard about what he was going to do, they even gave him some cash. Because of this, the man legally changed his name to Ashley Blue Square Revell. Before his bet, he said, "I really want to put that bet on and just get that rush and see how I'm going to feel and how I'm going to handle it, and if I lose, how I'm going to handle that." It said he walked out of the casino with his $270,600, and afterwards he told the media, "That was the most amazing experience I've ever had in my entire life." With his cash, he decided to buy a motorbike and travel across Europe, and on that trip he met his wife-to-be. They had 2 kids together, and Revell later started a company. His win has inspired game shows and has become a legendary story among gamblers. This is a feel-good story, but you'll see gambling has a very dark side. The Eternal Gambler. This man may not have laid down the biggest bet, but his name has gone down in gambling history, and he claims to have bet more money in casinos than anyone else in history. His name is Archie Carras, and he has a pretty wild story. In 1992, he drove to Las Vegas with just $50 in his pocket. There's not much you can do with that, but he managed to get $10,000 from a friend as a loan. He made good on his word to pay the money back, beating 15 of the best poker players in the world in a competition. We should say here that he had made a lot of money in the past and was well known in the poker community. But he really was down to his last 50 before he borrowed the cash. It's a long story, but he kept on gambling over the coming days and weeks. He kept on winning, playing various casino games, and this is now known as the run. At the end of his run, he had a whopping $40 million. That's $50 to $10,000 to $40 mil. But as often happens with the Eternal Gambler, he lost it all. Then he made a few million back again and then lost it all again. This is what he once said about his chosen way of life. "You've got to understand something. Money means nothing to me. I don't value it. I've had all the material things I could ever want. Everything. The things I want, money can't buy. Health, freedom, love, happiness. I don't care about money, so I have no fear. I don't care if I lose it." The coin toss. This is the story of a man called Kerry Packer, who was before his death at one point the richest man in Australia. He was well known for his gambling proclivities and would at times lose many millions or win many millions in a matter of days in UK and US casinos. In 1999, he lost around $20 million in casinos in London in a matter of weeks. And also in the 90s, he walked into a London casino with $20 million and played 4 roulette wheels. He lost everything that day. But his biggest bet, if you can call it that, was going up against another man. As the story goes, Packer was playing poker in the Stratosphere Casino in Las Vegas with a well-known Texan player. Packer was said to have an explosive temper, and the Texan didn't much like him. It said the Texan was also miffed that Packer didn't know who he was after he'd asked him to get into a poker match with him. That Texan guy apparently said, "I'm worth $60 million. Packer's response was, "Heads or tails, I'll toss you for it." As the legend goes, the Texan man wasn't willing to bet his fortune on a coin toss. Money Mayweather. We all know that one of the best boxers that ever lived, Floyd Mayweather, is not shy about showing how much cash he's earned throughout his career. It was reported in 2013 that the boxer made a huge bet in $5.9 million on the basketball game between the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers. He bet on the Heat. His team won 99-76. The odds were in his favor, but he still made around $500,000 in profit from that bet. He's never admitted to making the bet, but one Vegas gambling man who knows what goes on in Vegas tweeted, "Good source from my Heavy Hitters Vegas crew alerted me that Floyd Mayweather has laid over $5.9 million on Heat -7 tonight in Vegas." Better X. Now we have a sports fan who goes by the name of Better X. It seems no one knows his real name. It said this guy or girl made $25 million in recent years after betting on the Houston Astros and Philadelphia Eagles. But early in 2019, he took a hit after putting millions on the Los Angeles Rams. ESPN wrote that he made 3 big bets in total and lost $3.8 million. Still, with his recent winning streak, he's got $20 million in the bank that he didn't have. The question is, how long can he keep that? Nick the Greek. The man known as Nick the Greek, real name Nicholas Andreas Dandolos, was another high roller that had gone down in gambling history. From January 1949 to May 1949, he played a 2-man poker match against another legend called Johnny Moss. At the end of the match, the Greek man was down severely, and it said he uttered the words, "Mr. Moss, I have to let you go." We don't know exactly how much he lost against Moss, but some reports state it was as much as $4 million. In 1949, that was a lot of money, and if you convert that into today's money, it's over $21 million. That's some loss. The Underdog. This was by no means the biggest bet ever made, but we're including it because it's such a cool story. It's about a British soccer team, football to the Brits, called Leicester City. This team was a massive underdog and no one in the world thought that they could win the Premier League. It's difficult to explain if you don't know your soccer, but just imagine a lower-rung team from any sport that you know certainly don't have a chance against beating the big teams. In British soccer, the good teams almost always seem to win the league, but not this year. At the start of the season, the odds for Leicester winning the title were 5,000 to 1. That's how bad the team was. But some people did make a small bet, and we're talking about a fistful of pounds. The thing was, as the team were on the winning streak, betting companies gave the gamblers the option to cash out. Some took that option and took home a handsome $100,000 from a very small bet, but others stayed in, believing their team would win the title. It said one gambler won $250,000, but he put his money on when the odds were 2,000 to 1. With Leicester winning, the bookmakers took a huge loss that year to the tune of around $30 million. Go Dodgers. It's said to be one of the biggest sporting bets in history. The gambler became known as the Let It Ride bettor. All we know about the man is that he was younger than 30 at the time he made the bet and of Eastern European descent. USA Today reported in 2017 that this man started betting on World Series games in baseball, but he let the bet ride, which means when he won one game, he put all the money on Game 2. If he won Game 2, then he put all his cash on Game 3. He kept winning, and by the time he had won Game 6, he had amassed a massive $14 million. But to get that, he had to risk $8 million, on which he bet that the Dodgers would win. Think about if he had bet wrong on that last game. USA Today writes that the man was even thinking about betting his $14 million on Game 7, but he backed out. According to some sources, he's known in Las Vegas for betting heavily and has placed very large bets on UFC fights in the past. Some people think he doesn't even exist and is actually a betting syndicate. The Phantom Gambler. The man known as the Phantom Gambler, sometimes the Suitcase Man, was really called William Lee Bergstrom. He died in 1985, but before his death he became known as the biggest gambler that ever lived. As the story goes, he made some cash in real estate, and then in 1980 he turned up in Las Vegas ready to bet a lot of money. He went to Binion's Horseshoe Casino with a suitcase full of cash to the amount of $777,000. That's almost $2.5 million in today's money. He was also carrying his second suitcase, which was empty, so he obviously thought he was going to win. What most people didn't know is he had borrowed half the cash and told the casino owner that if he didn't win, he would take his own life. This was some bet, a mortal risk. At the time, the casino had a policy to accept any bet, and on this day, that policy would be its ruin. Bergstrom put all of the cash, and we mean every dollar, on the roll of a dice in a craps game. He won and doubled his cash to around $1.5 million, $5 million today. And as the tale goes, he drove off into the sunset. The next day, the LA Times printed the headline, "Mystery Man Wins Fortune." The paper interviewed the casino owner who said he was cool, he really had a lot of gamble in him. It would be a long time before the Phantom would turn up again, but he did go back to Vegas and the year was 1984. Again, he had a suitcase full of cash, but this time $538,000. On this occasion, the shooter rolled a 7 and that was a loss for Bergstrom. There was an eerie calm before Bergstrom went and ate some enchiladas. A few days later, he tried to kill himself but failed. His father tried to counsel his son back into good mental health, but his depression and addiction were seemingly irrevocable. Bergstrom went missing one day and his father called the casino bosses and told him not to take bets from his son. Bergstrom had actually gone to Vegas with forged cash, but that didn't work out for him. On February 4, 1985, he was found dead in a hotel room after consuming a large number of pills. He was just 33 years old. What's the biggest bet you've ever made? Think you have the nerve to bet big and potentially lose everything? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, Why Winning the Lottery is the Worst Thing That Can Happen to You. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.